Welcome to this explainer. Okay, so picture this. It's the late 1960s, and this incredibly dark, terrifying shadow just falls over California. Today, we're diving straight into the anatomy of the ultimate unsolved true crime mystery, the Zodiac killer. You probably know the basics, but this guy wasn't just a murderer, right? He was literally a phantom who weaponized the media and paralyzed an entire nation. Operating way before advanced forensics, he committed these brutal crimes and then turned the whole thing into a deeply twisted public spectacle. He manipulated law enforcement and entirely eluded capture. We're talking about a story of absolute fear, brilliant manipulation, and honestly, the incredibly frustrating limits of criminal investigation. Let's get right into it.
I am a hunter, obsessed with inflicting pain and terror. Wow, those are the chilling words pulled directly from his very own letters to the press. And right out of the gate, that tells us everything we need to know about his psychology. He didn't see the public as people. He literally saw them as prey. He had this staggering, almost unbelievable need for recognition that completely set him apart from pretty much any other killer of his era. He absolutely reveled in the panic he was causing. It's like he fed off the fear of an entire state, treating it like it was his oxygen.
So, despite all the taunts, the massive FBI manhunts, and the sheer public panic, he remained an undefeated mastermind. I mean, think about it. He was repeatedly described by survivors and witnesses as a white male in his late 20s or 30s, yet he slipped right through the fingers of authorities. Every single time. To this very day, his true identity remains a total mystery. No one has ever been definitively linked to the crimes in a court of law. He managed to commit these atrocities, totally mock the police for their failures, and then just vanish. It absolutely cements his status as one of the most debated mysteries in criminal history.
Now, if we're talking about ciphers or cryptograms, we're talking about a secret or disguised way of writing, a code used to conceal meaning. See, the Zodiac didn't just want to kill, he desperately wanted to prove he was the smartest person in the room. He completely flooded the media with these maddeningly complex cryptograms. It was this twisted game of cat and mouse, specifically designed to humiliate the police. He'd send these detailed letters demanding front-page news, accompanied by ciphers made up of bizarre, arcane symbols. And while amateur sleuths miraculously cracked a few of them early on, others, like the infamous 340 cipher, well, they were so incredibly devious and mathematically complex that they baffled the brightest minds at the FBI for over half a century. Crazy, right?
Just look at how quickly this terror escalated. It all started in the dark of December 1968, when high schoolers Betty Lou Jensen and David Faraday were shot on a remote lover's lane near Vallejo. Then, skip to July 1969. Darlene Ferrin and Michael Maggio are ambushed in their car. Ferrin tragically died, but Maggio survived and actually gave the first real description of this phantom. Then the whole game changes. He's not just talking in the shadows anymore. On July 31st, 1969, he starts writing to newspapers to brag about it, sending his very first ciphers. And by September 1969, he's attacking college students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Ann Shepard in broad daylight by a lake. He was getting bolder, he was getting faster, and way more theatrical.
His method was terrifyingly calculated. Step 1, target vulnerable couples in secluded areas. Step 2, strike with overwhelming violent surprise. But Step 3 was his true signature, turning the bloody aftermath into a total media circus. He didn't just leave a crime scene, he marked it. Like after the horrific Lake Berryessa attack, where he bizarrely wore this black executioner's hood with his own logo on it, he actually took the time to literally draw his infamous cross-circle symbol right onto the victim's car door, logging the dates of his previous murders. He meticulously engineered random violence into a highly publicized, incredibly methodical brand.
Because he was never caught, we really have to look closely at the psychological footprint he left behind. The murders clearly provided a baseline thrill, but the letters? They revealed a desperate, truly sadistic need for attention and a deep-seated desire for fame. He was driven by this almost pathetic drive for power and control over the authorities hunting him. Using those complex puzzles wasn't just about hiding his identity, it was about his need to feel intellectually superior. He was demanding that the world acknowledge his supposed genius. He just wanted to be immortalized as a mastermind, pulling the strings of the public and the press while safely hiding in the shadows.
And then came 1974. The taunting letters, they just stopped. Completely. This totally eerie silence fell over the Bay Area. While police desperately hoped he was either dead, institutionalized, or maybe locked up for something unrelated, the devastating reality was that the trail went completely cold. Without new communications, without new ciphers, or new horrific crimes to track, the momentum of the investigation just shattered. The leads dried up, the panic slowly subsided, and the Zodiac officially became one of the most agonizing, frustrating cold cases in American history. Let's fast forward decades later to 2007. Investigators genuinely thought, okay, modern science can finally catch this ghost. They threw advanced DNA profiling and digital forensics at the case, really hoping to pull microscopic evidence from the stamps and envelopes he had licked all those years ago. But they hit a massive dead end. The Zodiac was just too careful. The degradation of the evidence over almost 40 years, combined with his cryptic nature and meticulous avoidance of leaving physical traces, meant that even 21st century tech was essentially blind here. The ghosts of 1969 simply refused to give up their secrets.
Now, this struggle to solve historical crimes usually ends in total frustration, right? Exactly like we saw with the 2007 Zodiac DNA attempt being frustrated by tech limitations and its cryptic nature. But what happens when time actually allows science to catch up? Jump all the way across the Atlantic and way back in time to 1888, to the most infamous serial killer in history, Jack the Ripper. Fast forward to a 2025 DNA claim where genetic material has reportedly matched to Kosminski's living relatives. It is a fascinating look at how a modern breakthrough attempt in one legendary unsolved mystery contrasts so sharply with the total dead end of another.
So let's set the scene. We are in the gaslit, foggy, and absolutely terrified streets of London's Whitechapel district in 1888. A killer is stalking the night. Now cut to a 2025 revelation targeting Aaron Kosminski. Historian Russell Edwards drops an absolute bombshell. He asserts that he has definitively identified Kosminski, who was a Polish barber and a known police suspect at the time, as the Ripper. Edwards claims to have used advanced DNA analysis on a blood-stained shawl purportedly found at the scene of the murder of victim Catherine Eddowes. And the kicker? He says he matched the genetic material directly to Kosminski's living descendants today. No way, right?
But, well, rewriting history is never that simple. As we can see here, the scientific community is heavily divided. On one side, the claim, proponents argue that the DNA on the shawl matches Kosminski's living relatives, providing a compelling case for his guilt. They're calling it the Holy Grail we've been waiting over a century for. But look at the critics' side. They are pushing back incredibly hard. They point out a massive historical red flag. The chain of custody of the shawl is highly questionable. Like, who exactly has handled this thing over the last 130 years? How contaminated is it? Plus, they argue that this specific methodology of DNA analysis severely lacks peer review. So the debate is definitely still raging.
The stakes right now are incredibly high, and they carry immense legal weight and profound emotional closure. For starters, descendants of the victims are actively demanding a new inquest for closure. They want to put their ancestors' ghosts to rest. But critics warn the evidence is not definitive enough to close the books just yet. So guess what? The UK Attorney General must decide whether to officially reopen the investigation. All of this heavy burden now sits right on their desk. Ultimately, this entire situation really highlights the immense complexities of resolving historical crimes. It's almost never just a simple open and shut case.
This brings us to the ultimate tug of war. We are watching this endless struggle between limited, degrading historical evidence and the relentless evolution of modern science. Whether we're talking about the foggy, cobblestone streets of Victorian London or the sunny coasts and lovers' lanes of 1960s California, forensic science is in a constant, desperate race against time. We have these incredible new tools at our disposal now, but they constantly have to battle against lost evidence, contaminated crime scenes, and the cunning brilliance of master manipulators who knew exactly how to hide in the dark.
So, it all boils down to one massive question. Can modern science ever truly bring closure to a century of mystery? As our forensic tools become sharper and more advanced, will we finally unmask the Zodiac or definitively prove the Ripper's identity once and for all? Or are some secrets, guarded by the decay of time and the strict limits of historical evidence, simply destined to remain in the shadows forever? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll leave you to ponder exactly that. See you next time.